Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades. Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades. It's about to be July up in here, and July is going to be debate month, along with August and September. Here's what I'm sick of, man. I'm really sick of Catholics talking smack on the interwebs and not debating it. And this is a general thing. We need to be better about this. We need to be so much better about it. Summertime, I have extra time, and I'm just like really wanting to get into debate this summer. So I already hosted a debate on my channel, Young Earth, Old Earth. I'm supposed to moderate a debate between my brother and Robert Sangenis on Young Earth, Old Earth at the end of the summer in September. Might moderate this debate on SSPX in a couple of weeks. That one kind of got thrown into question, but wild because I've been saying, look, there needs to be more debates. I am so sick of paper tigers particularly on this SSPX question, taking a strong stand one way or the other and then not being willing to back it up. I'm sick of that on feminism. I'm sick of it on the religious wars, types of Christianity, paper tiger Protestants talking smack on apostolic Christianity. Oh, it's just exhausting. And so I'm really going to commit myself and make sure that I get as many debates upcoming as I can. I'm trying to get on DebateCon in September, maybe mid-July, though I got a busy July. So I'm at least going to do it on the channel, and I'm going to commit to today taking beefs that people, not personal beefs. These are literally the kinds of things that you're going to have with your friends. You're going to have disputes because no two human beings are alike on everything. So you're retarded if you're taking it personally. Absolutely ridiculous if you're taking it personally. But, we need to hash some of this stuff out. And I'm sick of the Catholic feminist normies refusing to debate this because they know what will happen when they do. I'm going to squeeze a little lemon into my Diet Coke here. Oh. Yeah, that just seems a little bit fruity. Seems a little fruity, but I like in summertime. I tell you, I like a little fruit in my Coca-Cola. I like a little bit of like a shandy, and that's with an unblemished record of heterosexuality. I say that. So I tell you, I've been sweating all day, and I'm just ready. I'm ready to debate. So you guys get your questions, get in line, super chat. We appreciate the super chat. I'm wearing my Gordon plaid here. Look at that. Go. Look at that.
Handsome. Very handsome.
Yeah, thanks.
So a little bit of some rules we're going to establish for today's show. If you want to come on and appear and challenge Tim, there is a link. Let me put that up for everybody right now. It is in chat, so feel free to use the link. You will be put backstage until Tim calls on you, so just hang back there. If you're already backstage, we have some people on there right now. If you want to make a comment for Tim to address, feel free to do that and duck out. If you're looking for more of a debate style, we will time it at 6 minutes so that we can get to everybody.
Cap. You don't have to be there.
You don't have to be there for full 6 minutes, but we will.
6,
we'll max it at 6 because lots of people want to get in and argue with Tim.
John,
today.
Who's a good dude from Annulment Proof, is going to want to talk about annulments and divorces the whole time. We can't do that, but we can't do that the whole time. But I'm one of these guys. I'm giving a lot of propers to Jaymond Dyer. Is that his name?
Jaymond.
Because just being willing to take in calls and go at it with all the people and all the stuff you've ever talked about. That's a dude that deserves a following on social media, you know. And yeah, he's wrong on theology, but he's clever and he's a tough debater. And even being wrong on theology, he's got a lot of interesting reasons for being he's a guy that should be in the public eye. That's just, you know, he can defend his position. Orthodoxy is interesting, but just all this other stuff that he knows a lot about, and he knows a lot about religion, and he is a pretty sharp critic of the church. And these are the kind of people that I think, even if I only agree with them 85 or 90%, that's enough. And I'm like, still, that's someone that deserves that mic. There just aren't enough of them in the Catholic world. So I want to do a similar thing and really be available to you guys. You know, you can call your names or whatever. Please don't call names. Let's just agree and be friends. But I do want to talk a little bit in opening, because I wasn't sure how many fighters were in line about the SSPX stuff, but I might save that, because it looks like we got a long line of people that just they're just dying to punch me in the face, metaphorically speaking. And that's cool. That makes a show like today's show a good show. So really fast, let me just say this. We are taking, once again, summer's extra time for debating, but it's also extra time to tool up the areas of your life that need a little bit of touching up. And life slows down, your horizons contract a bit, the air is still and hot, and it's easy to use that time constructively if you direct your time appropriately. Why not touch up your marriage? Steph and I are back to taking a cohort of, you know, people who want marriage coaching over the course of 2 months. And there's we became personal friends with some of the couples that we coached, good personal friends. And that's a really cool side benefit, but we really were able to help. So go to timothyjgordon.com if you're interested in this product that is part of the main pillar, patriarchy, of this channel. Not only did we help people find their spouses through the 2 matchmaking programs we've run over the last 2.5 years, 10 marriages with our matchmaking. But then we also have this coaching program where we're helping people get past their little foibles, to meditate on your own sins and stenches and shortcomings rather than your spouses. That's kind of what it's all about. For one thing, you can email me, timothyjgordon at timothyjgordon.com, if you're interested in marriage coaching that lasts 2 months, once a week marriage coaching. And finally, do consider homeschooling your kids also on timothyjgordon.com. This is another thing we help. We help you find your spouse. We help you stay together with your spouse if you need it. And we help you to pull your kids out of school, because schools are really evil, Catholic or public. It's all the same thing. Homeschool today. People don't do it because they're intimidated. We will help you. Literally, I will homeschool your kids for you. We do that in Retrograde Classical Homeschooling Enrichment Program, which is a totally separate 501c3 associated with this channel. It's me doing it's a camera in our homeschooling room, and you get the exact morning lessons all school year long that I give to my own kids. Latin, sentence diagramming, math, and we added a church history course. It's going to be dynamite. So do that today, and then also get out of your blue state, get to a red state, go to www.realestateforlife, because it's summer. This is the time to do all this stuff, because life slows down enough to tighten up the screws. I do want to talk about SSPX some. I do want to talk about the consecrations, ordinations that are set to happen on Wednesday. But first, let's take first calls.
Okay, first up we have James. Let me add you to this stage, James. You're on.
What's up, James?
Hey, what's going on? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hear you perfect. Good copy.
All right, cool. Well, before we get started, this is good book. My blur's blurring it out. I'm a lawyer by trade, so I appreciated this. We don't learn about the Anti-Federalist papers in law school, so I thought that was interesting. I also have 7 children, 6 girls and a boy. So,
oh, you're just like me before we had the 7th girl. That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. And by the way, and God bless to your large, I'm sure, beautiful family. We also, even at the conservative, that is to say, Straussian institutions of undergraduate education, like Hillsdale College, University of Dallas, the Claremonts, they don't teach the Anti-Federalist papers either in law school or undergrad, or really any poli-sci program in the country that I know of. Do they really do a rigorous job teaching about the Anti-Federalist papers? Catholic Republic, which I have a big announcement on the 4th of July about Catholic Republic. You might hear that come up in the Michael Knowles J.D. Vance interview. I just talked to Knowles today, so we'll see. We'll see. But a lot of announcements about Catholic Republic on our nation's 250th birthday. Sorry to talk, though.
Hey, that wasn't planned at all, but I guess fortuitous timing.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So, I'm not a theologian. I'm Catholic. I don't know if this is a formal debate. Bringing forward what I think is, I've watched a lot of your content over time. Obviously, I read your books. I hold the sede vacantis position. I think that's the most based position of all. I view you as sort of pseudo-based. And I think you get that issue wrong. What you were saying about, debating, etc., I think it's good. It's critical. It's needed. I think in that domain, the Peter Diamonds of the world, brother Peter, brother Michael. If you really want to have the debates that matter, those are the guys that really you should have the debates on, because to me, that's the most critical issue of all. I don't know. SSPX is a good example. We have, in a way, it's a mercy of God to show. It's so obvious that the Vatican II sect is not Catholic. You can't even make up what additional evidence would be required. I guess that would be my question to you. There's one specific thing, because I think this traces back to like your view on ex cathedra, and the fact that you, as far as I understand it, at least, you think there's only been like 2 ex cathedra statements in all of church history. I don't know if that's at the root of it, or your view of the Vatican II.
There's between 2 and 6. There's 2 undisputed ones, but where am I wrong specifically? Because I know sort of generically where you're going, but where is the Novus Ordo sect that I've defended? Because I'm not a sedevacantist. What thread are you pulling at?
I think there's many. The one that I was going to bring up in particular here was as it relates to the Vatican II documents. So we have this issue with Islam and the Vatican II documents saying that we Catholics and Muslims adore the same God. Mm-hmm. And they use that word adore. And as I understand your position, you're basically saying there's a sense reference sort of distinction that could be made, and this is how to harmonize it. But I don't think that really passes. As I understand it, doesn't hold up to scrutiny. I look at someone like St. Vincent Ferrer, because the whole issue is you have to, the true God is the Trinity. You can't claim that God is something other than a Trinity. That's the crux of the issue.
But do you think that the sense, God by sense, God by reference dichotomy doesn't cover that? Of course, the true God known appropriately is Trinitarian. Why do you explain to me your conception of God by sense and your conception of God by reference? And I guess we'll go from there. And also remember, I guess you think that Pope St. Pius X who promulgated a personal catechism which said the one true God is held out by both Jews and Muslims. The timeless tradition of infidel, that distinction requires this sense reference dichotomy, you know, or else Jews and Muslims ain't infidels. You know, that's the definition of an infidel, right? Is someone that worships the one true God, but wrongly by sense reference. So you don't believe there are infidels?
I do believe they're infidels. I don't know about that definition that what you're saying there. I haven't heard that distinction of, and you're saying an infidel is someone who worships only one God, but wrongly. That's the limit of that definition.
No, and the age-old definition of infidel is someone who worships the one God, the one true God, wrongly. Comes from the early Middle Ages. And St. Robert Bellarmine held it. A bunch of lesser-known schoolmen held this definition, and it's in Pius X's personal catechism. You can find it there. But I'm curious why you. I mean, it's perfect. This isn't like an application in an analogous way of the sense reference dichotomy. This is actually a species of the genus that this is a real dichotomy. Like if your friend sees blue spots on human toned flesh and you say, have you ever met my mother? And he goes, yeah, that blue spotted lady. I totally believe I've met your mother. You wouldn't say that he hasn't met the mother because he's misidentifying accidental or essential properties of your mother. It's not an accidental, essential per substance per accidents distinction that matters. The mistaken party by reference can absolutely mistake one or multiple essential accidental properties. You're still referring to the same, the referent is still the same.
So let me read you then St. Vincent Fair and tell me how this squares, and St. Thomas, because as I understand this argument, the issue is that we are talking about God in particular. So St. Vincent says, likewise, he who has a false belief, because this goes back to John, about to adore this. Again, this is talking about adoration. To adore the true God, John 4:22, you have to do that in truth. St. Vincent says, likewise, he who has a false belief about God makes and adores idols. And therefore, Jews and Muslims who do not believe the one God to be the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit make idols for themselves and a new God who is not Father or Son or Holy Spirit. And there is not such a God in the world because the one true God is Father and Son and Holy Spirit. And therefore and making for themselves a new God who is not Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Of course, there's dissent.
St. Vincent doesn't see this as he's saying this is an entirely new God, different God, not the same, not referring to the same being, the same reference.
He's wrong. I mean, he's wrong by that's just wrong. And even if he's not wrong, let's say arguendo, let's assume arguendo that he could be right here, and that literally my friend is talking about a different mother. That, you know, for my friend to be identifying a quiditative essence in the world as a locus in quo of the properties he associates with motherhood and me. There's actually like a new substance called my mom that's created with blue dots, because in this world of St. Vincent Ferrer's, the way you define him, the sense reference dichotomy breaks down. Then even if that were the case, you would still have to make a proof, make a demonstration that this was a brand new error to like 1958. And that it's just not. It's literally in Pius X's catechism, the work of Bellarmine, the work of a bunch of the schoolmen. And the mainstream use, pious use of the term infidel is always the monotheist religions, you know, the Abrahamic religions, whether or not that term's neologistic, maybe it is. But the faiths that trace by their, because we take faiths at their word, that trace their faith to Abraham. The only three true monotheisms in the history of the world are what we call the infidels, if they're not Christian. So you have to, I mean, you could call back when I do another one of these, but you're going to have to push the football further along and be able to.
Let's push it a little further.
Well, we have the 7 minute time limit.
Oh, I did see the time limit. We're at 7 already.
Yeah. Make a last comment and then
Oh, okay.
then we'll cut you off. I'm not trying to cut you off. I mean, I'd rather do a longer thing. I know 7's not particularly long, but we have a lot.
I mean, I feel like I get an extra minute for the Catholic Republic plug there, but
well, we didn't begin there. Yeah, go ahead. We're at
like 10 minutes, but
I'm a rule.
All right, I'll wrap after this.
Yeah.
So, just to a few points off the top of my head. One, you can't compare the Pius X Catechism to the Vatican II documents. If they're true popes, the Vatican II documents would carry way more magisterial authority than the Pius X Catechism, because it wasn't even signed or officially promulgated in a way that brings those into the same tier. We can get into that more.
I'm not comparing them. I wouldn't. No, this is their species. They're species of the precise genus of the location of the definition of infidel. So they're literally species of the same thing. And a comparison would be like an analogia. I'm not engaging in an analogy of faith or analogy of being or an analogy of infidels. I'm saying they're literally the precise, that they're using one in the same definition. It's pros hen equivocity, if we're going to be Aristotelian about it. So they're identical. Like that catechism, that teaching catechism, which reflected a very old mainstream Catholic scholastic view of the world, Bellarmine and many other guys, again, I'm doing this off the cuff, right? I'd have all of them lined up, use this definition of infidel. So if you're going to make extraordinary claims, require extraordinary evidence. And you and I are lawyers. We know that burden of proof isn't a real thing in debates. It's statutorily set, right? So I'm not saying the burden of proof's on you. I'm just saying when you're in the fringe, I would want to see some really extraordinary evidence to show like there's this secret crypto church that really exists, continues to exist.
How obvious does it need to be? I mean, that's the funny thing. Like I hear this where it's like, oh, this is this secret thing, when it's actually so utterly obvious now with the pride stuff, with all of the worship, with all of the false religions. I mean, all of the data. I mean, you have the
well, that's what I'm asking you. It's how obvious does it need to be? This is the exact same language that's been used time immemorial. I'm not talking about pride. That's another issue, right? But if you're going to premise your claim today, where am I wrong, on using the age-old definition of infidel, which is they worship the one true God, but wrongly, the way Muslims and Jews have always been described for at least the last 1,000 years of the church. And it's in like the trad king 20th century Pope's personal catechism, then I would reverse that. And I would say, how obvious does it need to be? This is literally the same definition, but we got to move on. You could call back.
Yeah, call back and we'll do this again.
God bless, man. Yeah,
thanks, James.
We'll take you again.
Okay.
We got to get smoother at just sort of cutting these people off. Like,
yeah, no. If you're joining the show, we're trying to keep each mini debate to 6 minutes. So please, I'll tell you the time once I put people on. Okay.
I'll do this when it's just like I let them talk as much as we can, then we'll cut them off.
Do what? Sorry.
I'll like touch my head or something. Then I'll,
like lemon tree. You're gonna lemon
tree.
Lemon tree.
Tippy toe.
Okay. All right. So we're adding annulment.
Just cut them off. No apology. I'll tell them when
we're gonna have to cut you off at 6. So let's keep it to time. Okay. So annulment proof. We're adding you in. Sorry, let me add you in here. And your time is starting at 7:29.
Cool. Hey Tim, when I'm done, just go like this. Right away. Get this guy out of here. Next. I started my YouTube channel because of you. You're the one I did it for. Because I'm like, I need to do a response. So I'm all about the debate thing. And yeah, if the more we can talk, especially on Twitter or X, more power. I have like 19 questions, so I'll try to get to like maybe 3.
Sure.
My first one is, Tim, you were saying that if you have a vasectomy before marriage and you get married, you can't do the conjugal act with your vasectomy. I've heard you say that.
It's the teaching of the church. Yeah.
Okay, so
The applied action theory. Yeah.
right.
Really.
And the reason for that is because there's no true seed. You're effectively impotent. You're not. It's a violation of nature to use your conjugal act if you have a vasectomy. Isn't that right?
No, it's because you're removing like form and matter. It's not the seed that matters. It's that you're engaging in 3 parts of a human action, and each time you engage that, there's a reference back to a disordering of telos and eidos.
Okay, so if you do
you
have
agree,
a
right?
Sorry,
you agree, right? You're setting it up for a contrast, an argumentative contrast.
I can't, when you say anything Latin, I basically zone out because I can't think fast enough like you. I'm not as versed.
I'm just saying you agree that I'm guessing you agree with me that whatever the snip as these people call it.
Of course, no, yeah, it's always been that way. What I'm getting at is in 1977, the CDF says, okay, now we're going to call these marriages valid, whereas before 1977, a vasectomy marriage is invalid consent. Now it's valid consent. Therefore, the vasectomy conjugal act is now in accord with nature, whereas before it was not. Have you heard that before?
What's a vasectomy marriage? I might not.
It's when you a vasectomy conjugal act, when you are consummating with a vasectomy, that was invalid until 1977. Now those marriages are valid.
Yeah, well, I wasn't aware of that, but I was aware at the disciplinary level that the church changed its disciplinary view on whether or not consummation was definitive to the quiddity of the perfection of the act. So whether or not you have a perfected marriage is based on like the ability to conjugate the marriage with sex,
right?
Not
so
on the consummation itself.
Right. So it's always been if you do not have the ability to conjugate, if you have a castration or vasectomy, you can't. But now they're saying you can. And the reason why I theorize that they are saying that is because love is the new telos and procreation is no longer the telos. And that's why you can use your vasectomy, because you're not violating the significance. Okay.
Now I would counter you, and I would say that clearly a vasectomy can be reversed. So it might be void, but it might be voidable, but it's not void. The distinction between
I guess that was what I wanted to just point out, because I don't know if you had an answer. Is what change? How could you change marriage from illicit to licit in 1977? How did you make the vasectomy in accord with nature? Effectively, that's what they did.
I don't think they're saying a vasectomy. The church wouldn't teach that as a human action, vasectomy is in accord with nature. What the disciplinary is doing is maybe granting to folks that want to be married, that started out where the man was in a state of having a vasectomy. They're granting a kind of hardness of heart exception at the level of discipline. So they're saying, well, your marriage might be voidable, but it's not ipso facto void. And I didn't even know this, that they did it. I buy that it's voidable rather than void. Not a fait accompli.
Okay, I got one more question, but before I do that, can you unblock me on YouTube? That would be my next request. Because you unblock me on X, and that's good. I appreciate that. Can we unblock me on YouTube also?
I'll try to figure out how to do that. That's a bit more tricky because I have to search, but I promise you I will look to see if
I would love to do that. Stephanie, you are my favorite account on X ever. Too bad you disappeared. It was my favorite. I was like, where did she go? Okay, next quick question. Does a spouse have a right to unity?
What do you mean by unity? Does a spouse?
I don't know.
Does a spouse have a right to sex?
No. A spouse has a right to the debt, has a right to the marital debt.
Yep.
But does a spouse have a legal right to unity?
Well, unity is mutually constitutive with sex. It comes from that passage in scripture that says you become one flesh, unity, one.
Okay, so that
they're mutually constitutive. So yeah, I would say yes. Sure.
Okay, so what is the legal definition? If I request my right to unity, I say, give me the unity. What is the unity? What is unity?
Unity is, I'm
I'll
not trying
have a
to
right to it. Yeah.
Unity is the intelligible part, the formal intelligible part of the one body that comes together during coitus,
1
the
minute.
sexual act. Yeah, we'll give him an extra. We won't count the second question, so we'll give him another minute. So okay, so you're saying that the telos of sex is love and the ergon is unity. No, for the marital act, sex done properly, the telos is procreation, always has been, always will be, and the ergon is unity, whose intelligible part is love. It's designated as love. That's the intelligible part. So
okay,
what about the difference between a formal cause and a final cause, and you're reversing them?
So there is no contrary right to the right over the body, because this is what effectively is going on today. They'll say, look, it's you can't separate unity from procreation, because that's what Humanae Vitae says, the unitive and procreative significance. And when you come at me with marital debt, I'll just come back and say, that's not unitive. I have a right to unity. So thanks for your marital debt ideas. That's nice. But we have a new law in town now. It's called the right to unity. Have you heard anyone suggest that before?
I don't know. Is that like a Christopher West idea? Because remember,
yeah, but it's also your bishop. It's every bishop. But
that's wrong. So that I'm not a representative of that view. Remember, because this is the first thing you learn in metaphysics when you're doing real hard Thomistic metaphysics, is because two substances or substantial concepts are separable. Let me say this, separable conceptually. They're not necessarily separable ontologically. So we can separate the idea of the formal cause of sex, which is love, unity, right? This is the intelligible part of the sexual act. And we can separate that from the final cause of sex, which is procreation. But we can't actually separate them qua a historical chronological act. They're both there every time you do the act when it's not being artificially contracepted. I'll give you one last thing and then we got to go.
Aquinas says that the wife has no right to ask for the debt during menses. She is not allowed to ask. She cannot request the debt during menses. She has no right to request the debt. Have you heard that before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. That's part of the Black Fast, which was the discipline of the church in the 13th century. It's not a discipline of the church any longer, and that can change. So that's not a doctrine, that's not a teaching, that's not the natural law, right? Because the natural law,
it is the natural law. No, it's still no, it is. This is part of why we got to go. And I understand. Let's cut me off. But I do want to try to follow up on X or YouTube with some of this, because it is important rather than just a quick thing and bye-bye. This stuff matters, and I think you're wrong about it. And if you're up for talking, that's good.
How is okay, thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks, John.
How would fornication or adultery in part not violate the natural law, which Aquinas says it doesn't, right? It's a natural vice. Largely not violate the natural law. He says in one way it does, in one way it doesn't. But the marital sexual act, which is both unitive and procreative, which doesn't violate any principle of nature, how would it violate the natural law when even a contracepted, well, not a contraceptive, but a fornicative act doesn't? That's something you have to think about.
John, I'm having a hard time finding you on the YouTube thing. Try to make a comment on the channel, and maybe that'll bring you up on blocked users right at the top, and that way I can unblock you. So try to do that for me, and let's see if that works. Okay, so next to the
not everything that violates the moral law is a violation of the natural law. right? There are natural vices that are mortal sins or whatever. And I'm not even conceding that sex during menses is a violation of the natural law, because the church has taught it's not, clearly. But I'm just saying there are some things that are actually sins that are not unnatural vices.
Okay. Next to the show, we have Raz. I'm going to add you in. Let's see here. All right, Raz, are you there?
Hello, can you hear?
Yep.
Gotcha. Copy.
Is it FSSPX time yet?
Well, let's go.
No, it's SSPX time. Let's do this.
All right. So bit of background. I'm talking from Brazil, so I apologize if the accent is heavy and the listeners are quite desolated by it. I'm trying my best.
We forgive you. It's a venial sin, accents. It's all right, man.
Well, if I try, you need to have some charity on me, right? Okay. So what I was trying to do here is I'm trying to make an appeal to why is it that so many Catholics are so strict on the FSSPX question, but they are so lax on other things. And that's not going against what you speak and what you talk on your show. I think it's quite reasonable up to a certain extent. And just so you know, here in Brazil, it's quite also a very heavy subject to talk with fellow Catholics. But it's also very good that most of the Catholics, at least in Brazil, are willing to listen, because almost none of them have ever listened to it. And the older guys, they just know of Marcelo Lefebvre as this kind of heretic that went straight from the church. And they don't know the exact details. They just know that he was excommunicated, and that's it. And then he's an evil person, and you shouldn't listen to what he has to say. My whole point here is that now that the line has been separated, there are two lines of thought here in the FSSPX communities here, at least in where I live. And the traditional Catholics there are almost sedevacantists, but are not, and they're willing to tread on that path. But the traditional Catholics that are not exactly pro SSPX have always said something akin to, you cannot leave the people from the Novus Ordo astray. So there are not enough priests and bishops and archbishops in the FSPX and in other traditional Catholic places to fill in those holes if, let's say, tomorrow FSSPX is declared the church, let's say, and Vatican is now exposed as the civil church, the conciliar church, and it's not to be listened, let's say, and this completely off the charts example. And the traditional Catholics, which are charitable to the FSSPX, always say that you cannot just bring it it's not realistic. So they always propose a continuum, in that in 1 or 2 generations this can be brought into reason. But the FSSPX communities say that you cannot do that when it's the path and the plan of the Vatican to bring a war of attrition to the FSSPX. You cannot win a war of attrition in the long term if the whole structure is against you. And that's the whole argument, that the FSSPX communities are saying what you're proposing is going to kill us in the long term. We cannot do that. And I'm very willing to listen what you have to say about that, because it's a very thin line in that Catholics that want to do right for the church, that want to do right for the tradition, and they don't know how to thread the needle. It's very difficult.
The first, I didn't really hear a question or a highlight as to where I'm wrong here, but I would say this. I think this is really important. The response to SSPX and the response to Sedevacantists is really different. Sedevacantists have a philosophical coherence. They enjoy a philosophical coherence, meaning a lack of contradiction between their premises that SSPX does not have. And I'm not saying I'm a Sedevacantist and I think they're right. I was going to say this to the first caller who was a Sede. They don't, that's just a historical contingency. When your major premise and your minor premise do not contradict each other or themselves, then your conclusion follows from your entailments, but you're applying it to some historical veracity or reality, it still requires that historical reality be true. The problem with Sedevacantism, according to my humble opinion, is that the historical veracity that all of the premises are contingent upon is not correct. But I don't see any kind of ipso facto, a priori analytic judgment in the premises that's self-contradictory with SETEs. With SSPX, there's self-contradiction. In other words, the idea of a Novus Ordo ecclesiology, to take the red letter date of 1958. There's a Novus Ordo ecclesiology. They say we submit to the Pope. He's the real Pope, unlike SETEs, right? We have the same ecclesiology. We're Catholics. You can't have with regard to that red letter 1958 year, you can't have a Novus Ordo ecclesiology, but a sedevacantist, disciplinary obedience or obediential discipline. Let's say it that way. So they're half-half. If 1958's the red letter date and the train came off the track then, the way the sedevacantists say, and there is, I wasn't denying there are obvious indicia that serious shit went wrong in 1958. It did. I don't think the train came off the track, though, ecclesiologically. SETEs don't think so. You agree with me, or SSPX agrees with me. The train didn't actually come off the ecclesiological track. That means that the obediential discipline has to follow the ecclesiology. So that means even like the kind of clown show of the Francis pontificate, it has to be obeyed in certain limits. So that's why I say there's contradiction between major premise and minor premise for SSPX, and I stand by that. So that doesn't mean I think that Lefebvre was a bad guy. I don't think so. I think he and I would agree about most stuff. I don't think he's a bad guy at all. I don't think he's a creep. I just think he's got cognitive dissonance, right? A Novus Ordo ecclesiology with a sedevacantist obediential discipline, and I think all of I like him. But I think all of the SSPX people are dealing with that fundamental cognitive dissonance.
Would you say that Saint Athanasius was a sedevacantist?
No.
Saint Athanasius?
No.
So if Saint Athanasius wasn't a sedevacantist, is it possible that you can try to obey as much as you like and can have as many communications as you had with him in exiles and all types of punishments and still be loyal to the church? And even if it means just, I'm sorry, my child here. So even if it goes on that way, so you say that Lefebvre has dissonance, is cognitively dissonant, but he tried his best to be as loyal to the church as possible, and even tried multiple times.
That's not the mark. The mark is if the Pope said, it doesn't matter if this is John the 22nd, who's a really bad guy, or any one of the other Borgia popes who's a really bad guy. There's an obediential disciplinary litmus test that's really basic. Sorry, this will have to be the last remark because we're out of time. And if the Pope, even if it's John the 22nd, says every member of the clergy in the world has to shave his hair into the tonsure tonight, they got to say, okay, if he says jump, they got to say how high. And so, no, I don't think SSPX are heretics, but if you refuse to obey after taking a vow of obedience, this is also why I didn't become a priest. I don't want to take a vow of obedience. They're existing at a higher level. And that obediential discipline, if you're saying, no, I'm Catholic, I pray for the Pope, but I'm not gonna shave my hair into the tonsure because I think it's a bad haircut. I mean, I agree. The tonsure is an ugly haircut. I think the Novus Ordo is a bad, ugly mass. And I think then we can get into the documents as well, but I'm not going to do that tonight because we don't have the time. You have to obey. So discipline follows ecclesiology, not the other way around. That's the end, I think.
Thanks for joining the show, Raz. Okay, next is Rodie. I'm going to add you in. Let me do that now. Okay. Rodie, are you there?
Yes.
What's up, Rodie?
Hello.
Yep.
Hello.
God bless you, Timothy, and your family. I'm a huge fan of your channel.
Thanks. God bless you.
So I'm a younger guy coming into this sort of Catholic world, from a Baptist background. As much as I'd love to talk to you, maybe I could, outside of this, I'll skip the formalities for now, just to respect the time.
Sure.
But
DM me with your other questions on
Sure.
Twitter, on X or whatever.
So my question here for the debate is, from the Baptist world,
Mhm.
the marriage is not even elevated to a sacrament. And I took the liberty of reading the Catechism on marriage, and marriage is the natural calling that God has placed in every man. But my debate question is, can we properly say that marriage is a vocation when even the heathen, the infidel, the atheist, they're all called to marriage in a sort of natural sense, but a priestly vocation or a monastic vocation is a supernatural calling. So even though someone has the natural calling to marriage, they also, in addition to that, have the supernatural calling to monasticism or the priesthood. So my question to you is, how then, as a Catholic, could you defend marriage as a vocation?
It's a good question and an important one. I think this is maybe the simplest bright line distinction of any of the questions. If all you enjoy was a natural marriage, then I'm all for not identifying that marriage, that pre-Catholic marriage, as a vocation. But because my critique of Pope John Paul II, when he says there are 4 vocations, I say, okay, there are 2 sacramental vocations. And there's the higher one. They're not equal. The higher one is the calling to the priesthood, which is maybe a more explicit one. It's an extraordinary circumstance. It's rarer that someone is called to the priesthood than to matrimony. And extraordinary callings or evocations require extraordinary evidence, kind of like we're saying about extraordinary claims. So I think the call has to be more explicit and more sharp. Marriage is half natural, like the pagans. St. Paul writes about this a lot, or are called to it, but it's also half supernatural. So I would say maybe the evocation is 1/2 as sharp. But yeah, it's perfectly reasonable to conceptually distinguish that natural marriages do not rise to the level of a sacramental vocation. There are only 2. There's a sacramental fork in the road, which is why usually most people can't get all 7 sacraments, which you understand. And we would say that's not a sacramental vocation, which is why it's not a sacrament. I just use the terms interchangeably. Whereas when you're called to be married and a Catholic, it bumps up to the level of a sacramental vocation. Now, what's the nature of the calling? It's a little different for everybody, and I'm perfectly willing to concede that it's less explicit than the calling to priesthood, but I still think it rises to the level of a sacramental calling.
I see.
Is that fair?
I think so.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, DM me on X. What's your handle on X, so I'll know to look out for it?
Oh, I don't have one. I'd have to make one.
Oh, okay. Well, just write me an email or something, Timothy J. Gordon at timothyjgordon.com, and we'll fire off questions. Yeah, you too, bro. Take care.
Thanks, Rodie. Thanks so much. Okay, next to the show, we're going to have Micah. I'm going to add you in, and you should be on. All you have to do is unmute your mic.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure if this is a disagreement with you because I'm not sure on every single one of your positions, but I got a small list. I was thinking if I would just get them out and then I'll just stop talking and let you kind of take over from there. But one would be like in the issue with divorce. We see in Matthew that except for adultery, it's not allowed. Totally agree. But then we get to like St. Basil. He says, if this occurs, then you are allowed to remarry. We get to St. Augustine. He says, no, it's not allowed. But from my understanding, St. Augustine didn't really have a good grasp on Greek. And the words that they're using, like translating from Latin, isn't the same words that are in Greek. Furthermore, like the legal word used in the Bible would have been like the same legal definition or word that they would have used to give a divorce back in those days. And the two schools of thoughts that they had with the Judaism, that they were debating the Jews about, neither one of them taught separation. And so I'm just kind of wondering, like, how we get, like, when a church father says something, and like when it's an actual law of the church, like St. Basil wrote canon law, he says, you know, if you get abandoned or divorced or whatever for adultery, then you're allowed to remarry. And then I'm Roman Catholic, by the way, and then we get to our Catholic viewpoint where it's not really a divorce. It's just a lifelong separation, and you're kind of like forced to live in celibacy. And then we get to Trent, and then they kind of, like, if I'm not mistaken, they make like a small exception for some of the Eastern Catholics that were kind of practicing this thing. And then we jump into even where we get like annulments now, which I kind of don't really agree with annulments. I don't think you can really kind of like loophole the Lord like that. But I'm just kind of thinking, like, which one's right and which one's wrong. Like, I'm not really sure, like, which one I believe, because I believe them both, and it's just kind of like a difficult situation, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would first off say, like, take heart. Our Lord addresses this in two gospel passages, and one is a more capacious exemption for divorcees, which you already referenced. The more capacious one is except for porneia in Matthew, right? This is Matthew chapter 19, verses 3 through 9. Whoever divorces his wife except for porneia and marries another commits adultery. Very interesting. Now, again, take heart, because when the church was compiling the Bible, they knew that there was a less capacious exemption, or actually no exemption whatsoever, in Mark chapter 10, verses 2 through 12, where Jesus says, whoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery against her. And then he says vice versa. If she divorces her husband and marries another, she commits adultery. That it's not like they sought to cover that up, that's distinction between Matthew and Mark. Interestingly enough, Mark the evangelist just heard Jesus say there's no exemption. So it comes down to not the speculative intellect, but if we're doing the kind of de anima of, what part of our mind is operative here, it's the practical intellect. I'm amazed how many folks, when they're pressed with this fork in the road, is there the more capacious exemption? Well, it's adult, because we're really dealing with divorce and remarriage. First off, put that out of your mind. Divorce, it's a serious problem, but you can go to confess. I don't know if people understand the way that, like, action theory plays out with the sacrament of confession. One can go to confession for this mortal sin of a one-time divorce, or just being, cohabiting, ceasing to cohabit under the same roof as the spouse you're not getting along with. The real problem is remarriage. And in both passages, Matthew and Mark, Jesus addresses it. Now, the large capacious exemption in Matthew versus the Markan lack of exception, where he carte blanche condemns all divorce and remarriage, has to be dealt with by the speculative intellect, I think, in the most conservative means possible. And so going through the patristics, they all are a little bit befuddled here. Anyone that reads the Gospels, honestly, can be a little bit befuddled, but I think you err on the side of caution. I think it shakes out that simply, where if someone really hates his spouse, or some woman really hates her husband, you can not cohabit. The big question is people don't want to live celibately. That's the big question. And so I just tell people, and this kind of covers what you said about annulments as well, because we went from having about 300 in the whole world to having 90,000 in the US or something in the early 90s. It's a joke, just because they tweaked something so that they got this tremendous other output. And you got several, tens of thousands of precipitous spike in the amount of annulments that are granted each year. I don't believe that either. I think if people err on the side of caution, they say our Lord was recounted by 2 of the 4 evangelists as teaching you can't get divorced and remarried. In one case, he says, except this subclass of this Venn diagram, if there's some porneia problem, then it's exempted. And the second time, it's not exempted. You have to, because it's a matter of heaven and hell. You have to err on the side of the stricter interpretation, the Markan interpretation. I think it shakes out that simply. And thanks for the question. I don't have a more technical answer than that. I think it's the only way people can proceed. You're not going to get, I know the patricians stressed over it. I understand why.
I guess I kind of would just respond to that by saying, well, Mark is supposed to be the first gospel, right? And then if we go with back and forth. But if Mark says it and then like Jesus later then clarifies it, like, yeah, obviously there's no divorce. And then Matthew comes along in the Gospels, and then Jesus says, save for the cause of adultery. I have a hard time seeing, like a first century Jew would have never understood a divorce as like lifelong separation, or even a Roman for that matter. And then when we get to Pauline privilege, like St. Augustine wouldn't allow remarriage for Pauline privilege, but Pope Gregory the Great would. So we get kind of like, it's like, where do you go and what do you do and who's right and who's wrong? Because the way it reads, like literally in Greek, in my opinion, it implies that it would be allowed for that one particular case. Obviously, not getting along with your wife and things like that. Obviously, that's completely, out of the window. There's no remarriage for that. I just don't know, like, because, even Augustine says, it's kind of venial to enjoy the marital act. And St. Pope John Paul II comes along, clarifies that. Even St. John Chrysostom also disagreed with that point of view from St. Augustine. So it's like, who do we listen to? Because they're all kind of telling us like different things.
Yeah, thanks for your question. The divergence between marital divorce ethics and sexual ethics is interesting. Because if you're doing it wrong, then it all ends up being porneia. I'm with you. But a couple things. Now, we don't have a canonical chronology of the 4 Gospels. I still believe Matthew's the earliest. Matthew, then Mark, then Luke, then John. But yeah, in some cases, Mark is earlier. I don't think that the principle of abrogation is the safe or cautious or even the correct way to read the difference between the Matthean teaching and the Markan teaching on this. I don't think you're going to say, oh, it's, was abrogated later. I think when it comes to state of life mortal sins, like being remarried to someone where you're regularly having sex, you just have to vow for celibacy. If you got married, because we can't really trust annulments, particularly in our day. If you got married and your spouse didn't die, then you just shouldn't get married again. So I would say that's the left to the practical intellect. I just think that's the only way that I would handle it if I couldn't get along with my wife, and whether or not porneia was the issue or whatever.
Okay, we're going to add Julian in. I think you know Julian. He got kicked off. His Wi-Fi got kicked off, so he got sent to the end, and we're going to add him in now. Let me add you in, Julian.
What's up, Julian?
Hi, Julian.
Hey, how you guys doing?
What's up, bro? You in Germany or Italy?
His Wi-Fi is acted up. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like 2:30 or it's. Hello?
Yeah,
Hey,
you're there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, it's 3 a.m. here in France, so I got to keep this short. Also, I'm looking a little bit chopped on this camera, so I don't want to be on camera too long.
It's fine. We can it might make it easier.
Right, so this is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is about your argument regarding Venezuela. So I wrote like a little beginning statement, like an opening statement of sorts. So you had argued that the intervention in Venezuela was unjustified, in part because it posed no direct threat to us. And under the traditional understanding of just war theory, I think you're probably right. My disagreement is that just war theory is underdeveloped for the realities of modern geopolitics. The classical just war theory assumes sovereignty is clear and that aggression primarily consists of armies crossing borders. But today, power is exercised through intelligence operations, cyber warfare, economic coercion, proxy groups, and political influence over long before war is even declared, if it ever is declared. So great powers compete primarily through influence, and a nation that refuses to defend its sphere of influence will inevitably lose it. This may sound consequentialist, but it's not. The deeper question for Catholic social teaching is whether a state can morally exercise hegemony. As just war theory is often presented today, I think it proves too much by making the moral exercise of great power leadership nearly impossible. Christ says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Meekness means strength under control, not weakness. Christianity has never taught that only the powerless can be moral. Kings are also called to govern justly, and the same should apply to nations. If powerful states are morally forbidden from exercising influence over weaker ones, then the very states most capable of maintaining a just international order are prevented from fulfilling that responsibility. So I'd love to get some thoughts on what you think of that.
I would say, I guess for the first time tonight, I'm semi-compelled by your idea that, and it's just one I would be, in all honesty, I would have to think about more. Is there, it's not a reconfiguration of, and it's certainly not consequentialist to reconfigure the traditional just war theory. Just war theory is a creature of the natural law, but it could be reapplied theoretically in a modern sense, which takes account of circumstances, particular circumstances that were not taken account of in, say, Thomas Aquinas's day. So I don't think you're in danger of treading into consequentialist waters. What I think, there's a chance that that argument might actually prevail, and I just have to think about it more. But if I call it a 50-50, that no, traditional just war theory is framed as it is with its essential properties laid bare, and we just have to conform to it. If on the 50% chance that would obtain, it would be because also adumbrated, presupposed, and required by natural law is what I call political geography. And all you're really saying is that in the ancient political geography, where the republic, the aristocracy, even the kingdom was presupposed to be a lot smaller, and wars were fought about borders, pretty much all categorically, then I would say we have to move the discussion to the discussion of political geography qua political geography, meaning does it violate the natural law to have a republic with 100,000 citizens, one large enough like that, which Aquinas and Aristotle both says it does. It's actually, even 100,000 citizens is too large, because once you're talking about a Delaware-sized nation state or a Malta-sized city-state, which is what they were assuming, then we're back on just war being constrained to precisely the premises or elements that Aquinas was using. So I would have to, I think the question becomes about the scope of the polities who are at odds. But with that, I would give maybe my first partial concession of the night. And I would say, because I do, if I'm going to do these shows, I will say full concession, half concession. There's a chance you might be right. And it's something I've thought about a little bit more since Trump has started going to war with everyone. But we'll have to talk about it more soon. Yeah, I would say,
appreciate it.
Yeah, half concession there that there's a chance you might prevail on that. I just have to think
And
about
this
it.
is one of the things that makes me excited about what Pope Leo has going down the pipe. I know, some of the other things, it's looking a little suspicious, but this rethinking of the just war theory, even though in the encyclical he framed it in a different way, a more, I guess, liberal way, but maybe something cool can come out of it.
Maybe he sounded more like a total reframe in the opposite direction, like the carte blanche pacifist direction. But we'll have to continue talking. I mean, we talk behind the scenes, so we can do that. I think we need to talk political geography, though, as a kind of prolegomena to this conversation, and then things would be clarified. I think a lot of people need to talk about political geography. No one wants to. Obviously the MAGA people, the America First people, obviously libtards don't. Everyone just believes in these gargantuan Leviathan, like hemisphere-sized republics or nation states, and it's a joke. It destroys all of the natural law that informs our social teaching. So for another time, good point though. If that's not the case, then I would probably make a full concession. But I still tend to think that things have to be smaller. Smaller is beautiful. Anyway, God bless you, man. And we'll talk about it later.
Thanks, Julian.
Good point. I like it.
Oops, sorry, keep messing this up. Okay, so next to the show is Alan S. Alan, connect a device if you want to enter the join the show, because I can't add you until you do that. So we'll go on to Bob P. So hi, Bob. Are you there?
Hey, what's going on?
What's up? How are you, bro?
Good. I gotta say, I'm happy to be here. I'm a huge fan. I've been listening to you for a while. So I wanted to ask you something. It's not really related to the overall topic. It's more so like a comment you made in a previous stream. So a while back, if I remember correctly, you said something to the extent that you had a third great grandfather who served in the Federal Army during the Civil War, and you have like a sword that he used in that war. And then afterwards you said that it'd be cool if he fought for the South. Now, as someone who, as someone who's a massive Civil War geek, someone who's actually something of a historian and a descendant of Confederate soldiers, that comment was actually really amusing. So I was wondering, what did you mean by that? Or like if you were serious and whatnot, because it was kind of funny. I'm not going to lie.
No, I wasn't joking. I like the Confederacy. That's why I moved here. I think the greatest American ever was General Robert E. Lee, who had this love for Pius IX. He said that Pope had a great love for our Confederacy, and the only sovereign in the world who recognized the presidency of Jeff Davis was Pius IX, and Pius IX hated what had just happened to him, which is the equivalent of what Lincoln was doing to the South. And as a kind of maybe historical curiosity that's symbolic and apropos and apposite, Lincoln tried to literally conscript General Garibaldi, the Freemason, Giuseppe Mazzini's right-hand man, into the Union Army. And he essentially said, due to the American South, what you just did to the Italian South, because Garibaldi, as you probably know, had just forced Pius IX at the point of a sword into the big queer Italian nationalization, the Risorgimento. And Lincoln's like, I'm having trouble over here, and I got this drunken, degenerate general who's not half the man that the Confederate General Robert E. Lee, fine, sterling example of a man, is. So we're going to get this Freemason, Mazzini's right-hand man, General Garibaldi, to do to Pam what he just did to Pam, do to Jeff Davis what he just did to Pius IX. So I meant it would be a lot cooler if I had a sword from one of Lee's sub-generals or something.
That's cool. I mean, what unit was it? Your third great grandfather? Where did he serve? What state?
You know what? I have to check. It's in my dad's house next to his great grandfather clock. There's a plaque. I'll ask my.
They got a letter from like the president or something about.
Did he?
Yeah,
I don't remember
framed.
it that well.
Yeah.
I just know it's right near the great grandfather clock. I haven't been. Yeah, I can text can text my dad and just say, hey, can you send me a picture of the thing? And I'll like, I don't know if you follow me on X, but I'll post it there or something.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it's interesting that you're an admirer of Robert E. Lee. I just did a documentary on him on my channel, and I too am a fan of Lee. I mean, personally, I like Ulysses S. Grant better, but Lee is like in my top 3, like greatest heroes of all time.
He's based. What do you like about Grant better? Just as a
as a historical curiosity. I don't think Grant was a good president, but I admire him as a man. I think he had a great character, even though he was bad at like judging people based on their personality. He was way too trusting. But I think he was a brilliant general. I think he was a brilliant strategist. I don't think he was the most polished or posh tactician, but me as like a historical military historian, I have the privilege of my 2 favorite generals actually facing off against each other. So oftentimes you'll hear people say, you know, what would it be like if Alexander fought against Hannibal? Or what would it be like if Erwin Rommel got to face off against John J. Pershing or something? And I always say, well, my 2 favorite generals in human history actually did fight, and their battles were legendary and really cool. And in the end, it was Grant who won and triumphed. And I admire that. I admire the struggle. I admire his strategy. And yeah, it's not to diminish Robert E. Lee as a tactician, because obviously Robert E. Lee was a brilliant battlefield tactician, especially what he did at 2nd Manassas. That was absolutely brilliant. But I like Ulysses S. Grant better.
Interesting. And I'll say that's one of the coolest and most memorable comments I've ever gotten on this channel. Just
really
everything you just said. This is badass. Now, it wasn't Grant a kind of degenerate, drunken gambler perv, or is that
not quite? That's a historical misconception. And I understand where it comes from, because during the Mexican War and prior to the Civil War, he did get kicked out of the army for being a drunk and drinking too much. But during the American Civil War, he had a chief of staff named Rawlins who made it his job to keep alcohol as far away from Grant as possible, because Grant knew that he struggled with it, because addiction, it's not easy to shake off. So during major campaigns and major battles, he was as sober as can be. It was only in rare instances during like period of boredom or where he wasn't with his wife where he got drunk, and that was actually very rare during the Civil War. Most of his rivals in the Federal Army claimed he was drunk at Shiloh, when that actually wasn't the case. And then like writers from the South, like disgruntled Confederate generals who pushed the lost cause narrative, tried to diminish Grant's reputation by saying that, well, he was just a drunk, he got lucky. But when you actually look at the primary sources from not just Grant himself, not just his memoirs, but the people who knew him, it was actually during the Civil War. I can't stress that enough. It was very rare for him to get drunk, but he was kicked out of the army after the Mexican War for being a drunk. So there is historical reality to that.
Cool. You know way more about it than me, the drunkenness and all that. I just think it's a really cool comment. So thanks. And
I would love it if you actually watched my my video I made on Lee. It's on my channel. It's pretty cool.
Can you are you on X? Can you DM it to me?
I could make an X and DM it to you like the last guy. I don't have one, but I'll absolutely do that.
Everybody get on Twitter, bro. Yeah, no, I mean you seem like it. These are the kind of guys I need, defending me on Twitter army. But yeah, text, email it to me, timothyjgordon@timothyjgordon.com. Sounds like something I'd be into.
Yeah, I do a lot of Civil War content. I actually just made another documentary on Nat Turner, the slave who led the rebellion in Virginia. I haven't released that yet, but it's in the works.
Cool. Well, email it to me.
Thanks, Bob. Hey, put your documentary in your channel in chat, and I'll put it on the screen.
You put it in chat. We'll fly. Everyone watch this. I want to watch it myself.
Well, yeah, it's more of like a critical look at him to see if he's like a strategic mastermind versus a tactical like commander. I argue he wasn't strategically sound, but he was tactically brilliant. And I did a more in-depth look at his career. But yeah, I'll absolutely do that. You guys are the best. I love the channel. You guys do a great job. And I got to say, you're a solid man, Timothy. I've always looked up to you in your work.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate you. And I'm going to watch your doc sometime this week.
It's very low budget. I got to warn you. Don't expect anything great.
Yeah. Don't worry. And yeah, you know your stuff. God bless.
God
Thanks.
bless you. Thanks, Bob. Okay, so next to the show is Zer.
What a cool dude.
Yeah, you love the cool dudes. Hi, Zer. Are you there? Let's see. I don't know if they know that they're on.
This is Zerka.
Okay,
Sorry.
I don't think they have. Okay, continue. We're going to get to some super chats too. So if anybody wants to enter the show, feel free to use that link in chat. Oops, I keep messing up here. Oh my gosh, I'm doing lots of things behind the scenes here. Okay, we're going to read all these super chats as well, so get those in. And if you want to join the show, then feel free to use that link, and you can queue up there behind the stage, in the backstage. So, okay, here we go. First super chat. Tim, in referring to the Carmelo Anthony show, what churches and your take on revenge or vengeance? You said that the father should have more rage. A shark victim finding and torturing the shark.
I was kind of having fun, but you know, with an animal, like they don't have an immortal soul, so you're allowed to hunt shark. So I wasn't suggesting vigilantism, if that's what you mean. I was just saying that the attitude reflected by a dude who's going to at least speak disrespectfully about a shark who ate his leg off, and maybe later did something about it because it's legal to do so. You can go hunt shark. Should be more reflective of the attitude of the father of Carmelo Anthony's victim. So I just think it was really corny when he said, "Don't make this about race." It never was. And then he you could tell he regretted it because he's like, called him the watermelon felon or whatever. But what I was saying is, don't be politically correct when you're sitting in a very public limelight qua victim. It's a bad look. You don't want to look bitter, but you should at least have righteous anger. And it's odd to have the sacrificial trained genuflection that liberals have brainwashed like boomers and people like that to do before they begin a sentence. Now, not that there's anything wrong with it, or I have a black friend too, or I'm not angry in a racial way. I mean, just say, look, I want this guy to be, get the death penalty. I want this guy to be legally strung up. I hate this guy. You don't have to say, well, it's not because he's black or whatever, or this isn't a racial thing. The murder was a racial thing. So your response can be laced with salty language. I wasn't suggesting go hunt sharks qua vigilantism, however.
Okay, great. You want me to text your dad and see if they can send that pics, or you want to do that real quick? Because
Sure.
it'd be cool to put that on the screen because people are asking about that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Next comment, super chat. Christ is King sent $5. Said, did you see the debate with Sam Shamoon against the Muslim PhD guy? It happened just 2 days ago or so.
No, I heard it was happening. I don't tend to watch a lot of Sam Shamoon. How did it go? I've seen some of the reaction. Sam Shamoon seems interesting, but we've never crossed paths. We switch camera angles.
Yeah, I just the screen, the text is cutting your face off.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So I did not see it.
Okay, I just texted your dad. Let's see if he responds. Okay. Seth M says Jesus teaches against this, though. As a young man, I find it compelling. I want to hurt people who do wrong. Curious of your take on it.
Well, the Lord said, "Vengeance is mine." So vigilantism is out, but at the very least, we can talk kind of tough, particularly if some piece of garbage killed your son. You can talk tough. That's not constitutive of claiming vengeance for your human self. So I'd just like to hear tougher talk from victims' fathers. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can't go take vigilantism as your means, as your mode of retribution. You can't do it. The only time a private citizen who doesn't hold the prerogative of the state, who can retributively punish, can actually kill someone is if it qualifies under the principle of double effect, which would be while they're actively trying to kill you or some other innocent. So you're never going to get to do it in what would be otherwise in some other context a satisfying way to satisfy bloodlust, a la Achilles going and slaughtering many Trojans after the death of Patroclus or something like that. Like, that's satisfying to a bloodlust. And yeah, as a young man, I get it. But we can't, as Christians, we have to pay a different toll. We worship at the altar of the Lord, and we don't have the license to do that. Thank you to Jamie Eddy for becoming a YouTube channel member. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, everybody go hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell. More important than comments or even likes is just subscribe and click the notification bell. It actually helps the channel a lot for subscribers. Yeah. It takes a second and you won't believe it's fake and gay, but subscribers actually help the channel quite a bit. So thank you for doing that. We just got caught in a spin cycle on the subscribe, and the YouTube's taken a bunch of our old, what they call dead subscribers. So we'll go up 20 and down 20. We got caught. Yeah. Friends, just please subscribe. Pretty please. With a cherry on top. Please subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so you know when we're going live. Cajamus, and there's still time if you guys want to join the show to talk to Tim directly. That link is in chat. It's pinned in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. So feel free to join the show and bring something up with Tim in person. But Cajamus said, sent $5, said, have you read Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future by Saint Seraphim Rose? And if so, what are your thoughts? I have not, but I'm hearing about it. I feel like I've heard about it 3 times in the last month and a half. You know, people saying it's interesting. So, but I haven't. Okay, next is Antonio Lama. Oh, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. I think conservatism is failing for its failure to address hypergamy and corporate consolidate. I'm terrible today. I'm so tired. I'm overtired because I'm nursing. Sorry, guys. I am Gen Z trying to break into day trading under ICT just because the economics are so bleak. But so they're consolidation. Sorry, that's the word. Conservatism is failing because we don't address hypergamy, is the comment. I guess, and corporate consolidation. Look, hypergamy's the law of the sexual marketplace for both sexes. Like, everybody wants the best, particularly men, want the best looking chick they can get with, who's got a decently moral and entertaining and narrowly tailored personality for your own. Same thing with women, just looks are less important to them. You know, like the old Christopher Hitchens joke. It's just less important to them. But everyone wants to do the best they can. I would say this, though. This is what I think the red pill, they get a lot of stuff right. But what they get really wrong is that women are much more easily satisfied when they reach a kind of terminus to the dating world. They're much more easily satisfied by, I want to be, I got good enough. Female loyalty kicks in a way that the red pill is not being honest about. Men are in some ways more loyal, but in some ways naturally less loyal. Like, you know, I don't know. Men are suffer the wandering eye once they're married more than their wives, and that's because we're wired differently. But my point is that hypergamy is a male and a female thing, and I just don't get how the red pill rebuts this. I would be willing to debate a red pill guy on this too, but then gives myself some weird feminist look. I'm as anti-feminist as they are. I'm more anti-feminist, right? They're pro contraception. They're against marriage. They're against family. They're pro having bastard illegitimate children. They're for women working. I've debated Aaron Clary and Paul Elam in a 2-on-2 debate with Andrew Wilson. He and I were teammates, and we debated those guys. I was like, you guys have working girlfriends and wives. That's cucked. But I just don't agree that females alone engage in hypergamy or, you know, branch swinging. Like, men, when you're single, you want the best looking chick that whose personality you actually like. And even once you're married, it's really important to men. This is a big part of my ministry, is just wives have to do everything reasonably possible to stay thin, because this is so important to marriage in middle age. So, you know, you got to combat the male wandering eye, which is a creature, the male wandering eye, of a couple things at once, but male hypergamy. So we both have hypergamy, but in different ways.
Next question.
I didn't address the corporate consolidation thing because I don't know. I'd have to think about that one.
Seth M says, Tim, why are you always doing the blue steel?
Just because it's base. So I'm a looks maxer by looks. Literally like a certain look. Like, I don't know. Is a weird family trait that both my brothers do. My older brother and my younger brother. Like, I don't do it when I'm not looking, but if I look over the camera, my face shoots into blue steel. It's odd.
That's why I have to keep the camera over here.
Yeah.
Because if you see
one of the reasons we don't have a monitor. It's goofy. I get it.
But your brother.
But it's also sexy. So
it is.
Shame on you.
So
I don't know what that means.
Both of your brothers do it. Like, I don't know if I've ever gotten a normal picture of you when you weren't expecting it. Like, I've gotten one or two like natural smiles of pictures of you.
I grant that one, man.
Oh, okay.
When it's all public, then people are all like, oh man, you did it. My friends just used to tease me and my older brother who were in the same band. Mm-hmm. But now it's like something everybody who watches the channel is like, what is this, man? What's up with this?
Oh, what are you doing? Okay, we have Samantha that wants to join the show. I'm going to add you in. Samantha, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi. First of all, I want to say congrats on your new baby, Adelaide. We have a daughter, Adelaide, as well.
Thanks.
So congrats. I was so happy to hear that you named her that. So I just wanted to ask, so I hope it's not too long-winded question, but I read Case for Patriarchy and Ask Your Husband, and I really liked both of them. And I really think a lot about just what you guys talk about, how the wife should stay in the home and prioritize the children. And that is, I definitely agree with that. But, you know, my husband and I, to make ends meet, I do a little bit of work on the side. And I thought it was really interesting that I think in Ask Your Husband, Stephanie says you really shouldn't even work on the side, even if you feel like you have a little bit of spare time. But for us, we feel like just a little bit of extra money really changes some things for us. I'm lucky to have a job where I actually can bring my children with me. It's in children's entertainment, so they can come with me. They have a great time. They stick right by my side the whole time. And on the rare occasions that I have an event that I can't bring them to, maybe like for just a couple hours a week, they stay with their grandmothers, which I feel like that time is it's really nice for them. They're with the women that raised my husband and I. So I don't know. I just wonder if you think that church teaching has any nuance on this. Like, I'm constantly trying to discern if this is right for our family. And I just kind of wonder what you would think, just given my specific scenario, where that really puts us.
I would say this, the one, you know what the one catechetical teaching is, and the repeated pious opinion of the popes, that where it's not clearly rising to the level of a teaching, but it kind of is, even 20th century popes, but it kind of is, because the catechism says, stay at home is work in the home or the curtilage. I would say if you want to be in the top safest category, then you can always augment income by working fully around the home, like in the home or around the home for farmers. That's why all those popes make that exception. Mm-hmm. Because it's not actually for the kids in the first place that a wife should stay around the home place. That's what I was going to say. It's for the husband in the first place, and for the kids in the second place. And the modern mind goes, what about before we have kids? Okay, for 1 or 2 years before you have kids, once you're married. But even then, you need practice at homemaking and practice for your dispositions, habituation, repetition for your dispositions, so that you don't get bored being around there, that you are available. It's a Machiavellian thing. Be available for your husband. Then yes, secondarily for your kids, you want to be home. It sounds like your system, because it's been so abandoned, the wisdom of my last 45 seconds of remarks, it's been so abandoned by the church that I would say you're in a liminal enough situation where you're almost complying, but practically, yeah, it's just tough. It's tough as a man to ever be home alone. I don't know if I've ever been we've lived here 6 years. And there were some times in our previous home in California, I was there alone. I don't know, I swear to you, if I've ever been home all alone in this house. There's
I don't
always
think you
just,
have. Well, where would I would be like dead? Like,
yeah,
where would I
but
be? Yeah.
it just sucks as a man when the house isn't a home when your wife isn't in it. Well, there's no heart in it. So
Yeah.
like I get that you're close enough. I don't think that Trent Horn and people were saying I think it's a mortal sin. I probably don't. But one, it's just the house ain't a home when you're not there. So if your husband has to be there, it's like it just feels fundamentally different. And two, I would just say women are just it's just dangerous for women to go out into public. And so it's good that you have your kids with you, but there's really this false sense of security that women get by their automobiles, their minivans, naturally you're just bad drivers. And secondly, if you try to use public transit, it's just terrifying. Look at like Irina Zarutska. That was what I was saying when Irina got killed last summer. I was like, I feel bad for this girl that she didn't have a dad or a husband saying, don't use public transit. You probably, Americans mostly.
That's a great point.
It's just, I just worry.
Yeah, it would never have been our daughter. I'm sorry. Like our daughter would never be on public transport.
Yeah,
Ever.
not to like blame
Ever.
the victims, but
Yeah.
so I'm not even trying to sound like some pious stranger, but I worry for you. I worry for any woman that's going out and about. I don't think you're probably in mortal sin territory. You're sort of navigating. You're given some leniency, some laxity, certainly in the post JP2 era. But I would say, yeah, try as hard as you can to be. Not because it's a mortal sin, but for practical reasons. The home is just a better place when you're in it. But yeah, I'm not telling you. I'm not preaching. You're going to hell because of that or anything like that.
Oh yeah. I really liked both of the books. I thought they raised some really interesting new points, stuff I didn't know. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it. You have a good insight.
How old are your kids? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. How old are your kids?
Oh, so my daughter, Adelaide, she's almost 3. And then I have a 3-month-old now too.
Cool. And how long have you been married?
We have been married for a little less than 4 years.
I swear to you, the semi-conservatives in the church have done this dialogue as if wives are only in the home to be moms. Yeah. They're really into home as helpmeet for their husbands, and then it's secondary that obviously
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
because I would say, like, as I know a lot of women nowadays, they like to be out and about, and having jobs, having just basically doing like public things. And I would say, we've been married 21 years. That being a good wife, which is where all the fruits of your family is going to start by being a good wife first, and then from there being a good mother. But to be a truly good wife requires a lot of your time and attention, like learning skills and like not just beautifying the home, but like also just like for me, it's like I needed to learn to do a lot of things, because a lot of us weren't taught how to do a lot of stuff. Like our moms weren't taught how to do a lot of the feminine arts, so it's like for me, I've really dedicated myself since I am home on reestablishing some of the feminine arts, learning how to sew, learning how to make more complex meals, like learning how to do, really like watercolor, garden, things like that. Like those not only beautify our home, but I think it elevates the female soul to reconnect with those things. And they are around the home, and those things get pushed to the side because we're so busy and we have so much going on in our lives. But I'll tell you this, I've really seen a lot of great things in our family since I've dedicated myself to that. Not only do my daughters like want to join me, but they are learning those skills as well. But I can tell it just makes Tim and my son happy to see me gardening, baking, sewing, watercoloring, things. It just brings like cheer and happiness to the family, which is again what a woman is supposed to do. A woman is supposed to bring happiness and comfort and cheer and beauty to a home.
Yeah, think about it kind of like this. The man's the head of the home, the woman's the heart. The head can be kind of moved around. Man's more mobile, right? I mean, think about like a boxer's head on a swivel. The man has to go out and move some. The heart's more sedentary. And I would just say, again, we ain't preaching. You sound like a good wife and nice lady and good mother, but it's interesting when the catechism tells you not what to do. It doesn't say the wife should remain at home. It's an even stronger claim than that. It tells you how you should feel about it. The wife should love to remain at home, which, as we know from Aristotelianism, this is a function of virtue, is a function of not one act, but your habits, which means doing that act a bunch of times. So the problem with women that are like, I know so many guys that even have tradish wives that don't even work, but they just go, they've told me, oh man, like I just get stir crazy if I don't get in the minivan and go to Target like 4 times a week. I'm like, that's just an habituation thing, right? So,
and again, it's not that they're not allowed to do that, but to me, it's like your time with your children. You have 18 summers with your children, and being a young married woman, you know, you have so little time to really enjoy your family. It's like, yeah, I could spend all my time going to Target and doing this and being busy in the minivan all day, but why would I do that? Yeah. To me, it's more, I want to spend, while I have air in my lungs, I want to use that time like really, really well every day, as much as I can, to glorify God and to really make this home a place that my children will want to return to and my husband feels happy in. And that just takes time. It really does just take time. And I know a lot of like secular women, they're like, oh, these things are boring, like cooking and cleaning. It's like, okay, fine, fair enough. You can say that all you want to, but it's these, to do those things really well, you need to throw yourself into them.
Yeah. So I called your case liminal because I think you're not violating the letter of the law, probably violating maybe in a little way the spirit of it. And if there's a way to maybe work inside the home, sell your goods, you know, to even put stuff on the internet, that's better, because it really says the wife should love to remain at home, point number 1, unless compelled by necessity to go out, point number 2. That is, Trent Horn mocked this in our debate, but that's where you're closest to actually violating the letter of the law. But then it says, and she should never presume to leave home without her husband's consent. So that kind of proves, saying it a third way, that I don't think you're not violating that, because your husband probably gives consent for you to go work a little bit extra. But with the previous 2 statements, that's a context that makes it really clear that it is not just being cheeky, the catechism. The church is not just being hyperbolic, the way our Lord was sometimes hyperbolic in the parables. It's saying repeating in 3 different ways. Your disposition, you should love to remain at home. Unless compelled by necessity to go out, this means only with really strong exceptions being required for lack of complicity. And then thirdly, she should never presume to leave home without her husband's consent. So, you know, it is what it is. You know, maybe you could bring in extra money by doing something, putting the children's entertainment on the internet or something. Maybe you think about it and you decide not to. What do you do for kids' entertainment, by the way? I'm just curious.
It's just like we get paid by local libraries to bring library programming to, it's like a mommy and me class, sort of.
Oh yeah, that sounds,
it's really sweet and fun.
That sounds pretty wholesome. I mean, that sounds more like, if it's like how many hours a week are you doing? That sounds even a little more like you're allowed to bring your kids to the library. Steph still doesn't like to drive,
it's it kind of depends on the week, but the events are no longer than an hour, and they're up to half an hour away, so it's like 3 hours at most one day. And then I do a little bit by myself. I go to like where elderly people live, like assisted living and stuff. I entertain them sometimes too. So my children can't come to that, but that's when they stay with grandma.
Yeah. I don't know if you're asking me, you know, just to put it, because you did, I would say probably, even though I'm really uncomfortable with the idea of Steph driving around, but the libraries I think are fine where your kids are there. The elderly, you know, where the kids can't even go along, I probably, unless the kids could go with you, I probably wouldn't. But I don't know. I don't even like the idea of the house being here alone. Anyway, I don't think you're in danger of anything, hyperbolic like that. But yeah, that's pretty much the way I would divide it if I were you.
Okay, thanks.
Or your husband, his relative. Yeah, God bless you. Thanks for reading the books, and
yeah, they're really good.
thank you, and God bless you. And we'll see you around the bend.
Thanks, Samantha. Thanks so much. Okay. Moving on to more super chats. We have Gina Castellone says, "Can I attend the SSPX consecrations?"
Ecclesia Day allows you to attend the chapels. I'm sure you already know that. The consecration, remember, formal adherence to a schismatic spirit is formal cooperation. So if you're rooting for them and it's a schismatic act, then that is formal cooperation. So I would say no.
Okay. Let's see. Joseph Clark says, "Hey, Tim, is it true that Steph needs your permission to leave the house? Somebody told me that. Love you, man." Yep. But I don't understand.
Let me read the. I don't know. You don't ever really ask to leave.
Yeah, but I don't understand.
The wife should love to remain at home unless compelled by necessity to go out, and she should never presume to leave home without her husband's consent. I'm just saying this is the one catechetical teaching like that our church has ever given on duties of the wife. So
it's your job to protect me.
Is that not the way you guys are living?
I know. I don't understand why people have such a hard time with this, because your job is to protect me. Like, that's what God made a husband for a wife for, right? Like, you have to protect me and protect our household. There's been so many times where I've asked you, can I go, when we lived in Bakersfield, can I go, shopping in this area? And you're like, no, that's not an area I want you to be in. That's dangerous. And I thank goodness I brought it to your attention. Furthermore, what husband doesn't want to know where his wife is during the day? You always know, even when you were working in the law or when you were, working full time as a teacher, you knew where I was. I know where my children are, because my job is to protect them when you're not around. Your job is to protect me. And you have every right to say to me, you can go this place, you can't go here, because that's your job.
It's just so odd. What do these people think when they see Irina Zarutska? I saw it last summer. People were like, she should be able to go around. That's conservatism. This is why we can't have nice things. Women should not be able to go around on public transit, particularly at night, but even during the day. I just don't understand the set of presuppositions leading to that objection to our worldview as presented in Case for Patriarchy and Ask Your Husband. It's why do you want more women abroad in society? The entire presupposition of everything I'm reading from the Roman Catechism is that women are the quiet, inner, private part of home life. The heart stays there. The head kind of has to move around more.
Let's see here. Kajima said, a lot of my friends stopped going to church because of the death penalty statements from Pope Leo. How do you stay faithful?
Because I happen to know a lot about the death penalty and the Pope. Allegedly, Francis, in his Curia, he was going to make a statement on the death penalty that would have used the theological term for the disciplinary change, but he downgraded it to a non-theological term, permissibility, simply because he read Ed Fazer and Joe Bassett's book. I know both Ed and Joe, and their book's phenomenal. And we know, I'm just not bothered by this stuff at all. We know libs are going to lib. We have a period of liberal popes. That doesn't mean that the church falls apart. And they haven't changed the teaching one iota in the Acta Apostolica Sedis anyway.
Okay. Stumped said, I want to participate, but I can't think of any argument where you are wrong. Keep up the good work. When is your Christian Zionism book coming out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. I did 5 books in 5 years. My 5 books I wrote in 5. Well, I published in 5 years, because Catholic Republic, my magnum opus, was really written between 2013 and 2018 in its second edition. And I didn't have to do too much rewriting, but I had a book come out in 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. And I just got burned out from writing. 5 books in 5 years is a lot. And so,
and you had to edit mine too.
And then
That's
I
a
edited
lot.
yours, and that was a big task. I mean, your book's
It is a
great.
big task.
No, it was just being a really hands-on. I did a kind of master edit on it, not just
And
a
it
copy
needed a
edit.
lot of editing, so it was a
good
lot.
though. It's
Yeah.
good. It's really good, and it turned out really well. But that felt like almost as much work, and it's just a lot of work to make sure a book's perfect when you're a grammarian and a stickler and a wordsmith, and nothing can be misspelled. No, I don't want any dangling participles. I don't want any poorly conjugated. I don't want anything that's even a little bit off. And I'm more sticky than most copy editors. Then that's a whole extra layer after you research a book and you write it and you make sure that it's interesting and popular. So maybe we'll get back to writing. I do love writing, but I got burnt out 5 books in 5 years.
We're gonna add Josh to the stage. Hi, Josh. Let me add you in.
I put too much lemon in my water, by the way. I just thought you guys might want to know that. Now it's like just drinking a lemon.
Hi, Josh.
What's up?
Hello.
What's up, Josh?
Been watching you guys' show for several years now, so pretty cool to be on.
Thanks for
Can you hear me?
for joining. Yeah, we're honored to have you. Thanks for watching.
So before I make my correction, let me double check that I heard you right last year. So during your Orthodox series, you made the comment, I thought, that everyone should be Roman Rite because the Eastern rites were concessions to the Orthodox. Was that correct?
I probably said something like that. Yeah, I'm a Western supremacist. Yeah.
Okay.
But I would kind of, but I'll stand by it. Yeah.
I will challenge that, and since we're doing a 6-minute time limit, 2 main sources. Pope Gregory the Great, Epistle number 9, where he talks about the differences between the Kyrie eleison and the East and West. And it's not just musical notation. We use it 9 times with the Christe eleison in the center. They use it for their responses to every single thing, like we'd say, Lord have mercy. That's evidence number 1. That's a difference in liturgy. He described it very differently. Evidence number 2 comes from Jay Godgin's article on New Advent.
What proposition does that evidence? Sorry, I'm just trying to keep it straight in my mind.
That the Eastern rites existed prior to the schism, that they were not concessions to get the Orthodox back into communion.
Oh, no. I didn't mean, okay, I'll let you go on, but I didn't mean that they didn't antedate the schism. I know these are very old, beautiful rites. I was just saying that they were Council of Florence era concessions whereby the Pope allowed the disciplinary usage of many of these Eastern rites, like, hey, you don't have to say the Filioque and you can say your mass as long as you believe the Filioque. To me, that diminishes the it's a leniency that the Pope has the discretion to grant. I'm not saying he doesn't. And I'm definitely not saying that they made the Eastern rites up. I mean, the Eastern rites are old, and as far as they go, they're beautiful. I was just saying, hey, we're Latins, I was just questioning the prudence of doing that, but I'm not saying the Pope couldn't have done it. I was kind of just funning, but go on with point number 2.
Point number 2 is going to be referring to Leontius of Byzantium. I got this out of Jay Godgin's article, The Liturgy of St. Basil, where he criticizes Theodosius of Mesopotamia for creating a new liturgy that lacked the apostolic spirit, but he praised St. Basil's liturgy for having that apostolic spirit.
Yeah, well, these are old liturgies. I'm not pressing that one bit. They're old liturgies. I just don't know if they should be. I mean, I'm not suggesting they need to be discontinued locally. I'm just saying that I think Latins should use the Latin rite. I don't think we should have 2 forms of the rite. We're the only rite that has 2 forms, and I just think we shouldn't have this much liturgical diversity.
Well, in the East, they have each Eastern rite has at least 3 different liturgies they rotate during the year. The Byzantines have St. James, St. John Chrysostom, which is their primary, and St. Basil during penitential seasons. Ethiopians, don't get me started how many anaphoras they got. I quit counting after like 15. And then Coptics have liturgy of St. Mark, St. Basil as well. That's their main one.
Yeah. Yeah, you know your stuff on liturgy. Look, I don't object to them, like I said, locally. But when we're talking about, I also make this remark primarily in the context of, remember the prospective new Amazonian rite? I'm like, what we need to be doing is universalizing the Latin rite. The Latin rite's already what, 95% of the masses, 95+% of the masses set on the face of the globe.
Right.
Would you agree with that? So I'm just saying, unless you're in one of those unique jurisdictions, dioceses, we should have one Latin rite. It should basically be the TLM or a slightly modified TLM. And people that are brought into the church newly, particularly in the West, should be brought into the one version of the Latin rite. That's what I'm saying. But I didn't mean the claim. I didn't by any means mean to suggest that there aren't these very ancient, very beautiful Eastern liturgical traditions. That would be flat wrong. That's straight up not what I believe. I just was being salty with it, you know, like, come on, abolish them all and let's just have the Latin rite, the Roman rite, and let's have the real Roman rite. I was kind of just being salty.
Okay, I mean that was really my correction, was that they predated the schism. I mean,
yeah,
reading the Antiochus.
100%. I ain't backing off there. And I'll grant you this, sir. You know way more about the Eastern liturgical tradition than I do. I was just saying, you are aware that it's kind of funky what happened after the Union of Florence, right? Before and during the Union of Florence, right? The Pope was literally like, we'll let you keep your liturgy and you don't even have to say the Filioque at the Creed.
I would say it goes beyond Florence, because Florence was kind of a failure. If you go to the Union of Brest with the Ruthenians, just a couple hundred years, I forget, 1500s, 1600s, the Union of Brest, where once part of it was ensuring that the land neighbors could not Latinize the Ruthenians, like, because the Ruthenians were having a lot of trouble. They looked at their Polish neighbors, and the Roman Rite was doing things right. No pun intended. All pun intended.
Yeah.
So they went to the Pope, and one of the concessions was, because of Polish law, you can't ring the bells during Good Friday. But in the Byzantine Rite, that's part of the tradition. So they just wanted certain protections to not be Latinized. And I don't think keeping the rites around would have been a concession on the part of the Pope. That would just been a continued recognition of a liturgy that was there since, I'm not going to say apostolic times, because these are 4th, 5th century liturgies, but they came from the liturgy of St. James, which is potentially apostolic.
Yeah, which is like the oldest one, allegedly. That
Adi Amari pretty old. Adi Amari is pretty old too. That one's funky. Yeah. No, man. Look, we got no beef, you and I, brother. Hey, you seem like a cool dude. I like how much you know about liturgy. That's just impressive. But you got anything else for me? Yeah, we're good. We're all good. Nope, that was it.
All right,
thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for listening. And
Thanks, Josh.
I just keep thinking, what a cool listenership this is. You guys know so much about cool different stuff. So
next super chat, Anthony Diaz says, why are Christians so vocal against the sins of homos and baby murderers to the point of organizing against their causes, but not as vocal to those other sins like gluttony, sloth, or divorce?
Well, hierarchy in all things. Divorce is a recent leniency since the church decided to open up the windows in the 60s, which really meant the 70s. But we've been traditionally really, really aggressive against remarried divorcees. And many people today that are boomer aged or older who were practicing Catholics before the council were all but excommunicated in a equivocal sense from their local community, the local church. So, you know, that's a recent bias. There's recency bias built into your claim there. And, you know, gluttony, this is a very private sin. It doesn't scandalize as much. Gluttony by its nature almost is always anti-scandalizing because fat people look so bad. People, I can't talk about this enough. You'll listen to Nick Fuentes and he'll talk about, look, we have to stop doing this. You can't, we have to stop being fat. Conservatives and Catholics. It's just, you need thin women and reasonably thin men who are strong. That's what the West is supposed to look like. So gluttony's kind of its own punishment though. So I don't think the church has to go that hard against it. I kind of agree with what you're saying about marriage, but that's a super recent laxity. And I forget what the other one you said is, but yeah, like murder is really important that the church goes hard against. And we should go harder against divorce. And gluttony is its own punishment, man, because you look like hell when you're fat.
Your body revolts too.
Your body
it's like
revolts.
You get high blood pressure. You know, all these
You're
diseases
sick.
that your body just is like, it's like it's rebelling against you.
Helen of Troy would look terrible fat, right? Or even a little chubby. There's just nobody looks good chubby, or nobody looks good fat, but nobody even looks good chubby. So it's just, and your body revolts against you. You get acid reflux, sleep apnea, halitosis.
Yeah. He followed up. Anthony Diaz followed up and with another super chat and said, I know the first two sins I stated are always mortal, but the latter are much more rampant and also can be mortal.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just saying when there's a natural like adequation via sort of self-punishment of the act, the antecedent act, when there's a consequent punishment that sort of carries all the time, like gluttony, in this everyone wants to look good on the internet and off the internet, then gluttony is just not one of those ones that the church really has to go too hard against, even if it's a sin, because people want to look good. So that was the nature of my answer. I wasn't saying that it can be a mortal sin. It probably is a mortal sin more often than people like even you and I are presupposing. All right. Good questions. Cool audience. Adequate answers. I think we'll do this a lot. I think about anything. I thought we'd get more young earth, old earth stuff, but I'm happy that we got Asete and SSPX. Political questions. This was really good. We'll do it more. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Thanks for the thoughtful questions. Thanks, John, for the divorce and remarriage question. It's just really good. And we didn't get any stupid or annoying questions, so that's really cool. It's incentivizing to do it more of this, because these were all thoughtful questions that I think had meaningful trajectories. Whew. Well, let's see what's going to happen on Wednesday. I didn't even need to fill space with the little thing I had on the SSPX. We'll do this when more applicable, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. God bless you all. And Deus Volt.